Let's take a minute and talk about some of the terms on your glossary as they relate to this sleeve sloper. As you'll note, this curved seam of the armhole is usually called the armscye seam. However, the line itself on the sleeve is called the cap. The bicep line is perpendicular to the grain line and passes through both corners of the underarm seam. From the bicep line up to the top of your sleeve cap is called your cap height. You can also have any length of sleeve you'd like. Short sleeves, elbow length sleeves, 3/4 length sleeves, bracelet length, or long sleeves. You'll notice some notches along the top of your cap. One notch on one side and 2 notches on the other. This is pretty standard pattern notation to mean that the 1 notch goes to the front of the pattern and the 2 notches go to the back. At first glance, you may not be familiar with some of these concepts we're going to present to you. Shapes like the bishop sleeve or the leg of mutton sleeve look sort of unusual, but they have lots of variations in modern fashion. The first step in developing a short puffed sleeve is to trace off your entire sloper. Just as a reminder, we've notched our sleeve notches along the armscye to aid in tracing. Determine the length of your finished sleeve. For this example, we're going to measure down from the underarm point 3/4 inch. Then add seam allowance along this bottom line only. Cut out your pattern. Fold your sleeve in half to find the center of the sleeve, and then draw in this line. Then, about halfway in between your notches and this center line on each side, make a design mark, and draw in 2 more lines parallel to the first center line. Mark pivot points at the intersections of your design lines and your stitching line. Then, slash down to the pivot point and slash up through the seam allowance. Next, determine the desired amount of fullness you'd like in your puffed sleeve. You can use your gather's chart as a reference to help you figure this out. For this example, we're going to spread a total of 1.5 inches into our sleeve. Divide your desired distance evenly between your 3 slashes. In our case, we're going to open each slash 1/2 inch. Karen and I sometimes find it easier to tape the center section and then work our way outwards. Draw in a smooth curve to be your new cap line. We've added about 1/8 inch to our cap height here, just to give a little bit of ease, and then we've swung the line smoothly down to the bottom of the armscye. We do cut off a bit of the sleeve on either side, but that's not going to affect the fit because we've added so much ease in gathering. To finish your pattern, draw on notches at the outside edges of your slashes. These will tell you where to begin and end your gathering threads. Then draw on seam allowance and cut out your pattern. Next, we're going to show you how to draft a bishop or balloon sleeve with fullness concentrated at the bottom. This sleeve is usually gathered into a cuff or band. Begin by tracing off your entire sloper. Then determine the depth of your cuff. In our example, we're going to do a 5/8 inch deep cuff. To make sure that this sleeve is the correct finished length, we're going to take the depth of the cuff off the bottom of our sleeve. However, because we want our sleeve to have a little bit of ease, we need to add some of the depth of the cuff back onto the sleeve so that it blouses nicely over the cuff. We're going to add 1/4 inch of ease. So what this means is that actually we're only going to shorten the sleeve 3/8 of an inch. This will become our new operating sleeve baseline. Cut out your pattern. Mark and determine your slash lines exactly like you did for the puffed sleeve. Fold your sleeve in half to find the center line, and then mark design points halfway in between the notches and the center line on each side. Slash along these lines from the hem up to the sleeve cap, leaving about 1/8 of an inch unclipped so you can pivot. Open out your sleeve onto a piece of scrap paper. So we've slashed and spread our pattern. We've opened out each slash about 1 inch. This is kind of a lot of fullness, especially for a doll sleeve. However, the bishop sleeve is traditionally quite full. Also, we're intending to make it up in a very lightweight fabric like chiffon, which drapes well even at a doll scale. Draw in a new center line for your sleeve. Next, determine the quarter points along the hemline of your sleeve by measuring from the center line to the edge and marking half this distance. From the dot on the back, measure down 1/2 inch and make a mark. And from the point on the front, measure up 1/4 inch and make a mark. We're working with an American Girl doll sloper, so these measurements may be a little bit different depending on the size of doll you're working with. Then draw in a new curve for your hemline, being sure to intersect it with the original hemline at the underarm seam and pass through the notches you made. Because this design is going to have a cuff, we need to add an opening for a placket. In our case, we're going to do a continuous lap placket. Draw in this line to your desired length at the mark you made at the back of the sleeve. It should be perpendicular to the new hemline. To complete your pattern, add seam allowances and cut it out. This Liberty Jane dress has got some fantastically poofy little gathered sleeves, complete with a gathered ruffle around the bottom. In this example, the sleeve was slashed and spread across the entire width of the sleeve, rather than being slashed partway and pivoted open to create fullness just at the top.